Last thing I wanted to get to today deals with elections. Yesterday, there was a Illinois House Elections and Ethics Committee hearing. It was about 2 hours long or so, but one particular moment I wanted to share with you deals with the issue of our decentralized election system. Now, we have 102 counties in Illinois. Each county has its own election jurisdiction, where they've got a local clerk that manages the elections locally. That's 102 different election offices in counties across the state. Total, there's actually 108 election offices across the state of Illinois. These are independently operating, siloed election offices across the state of Illinois. And I think the extra 6 or so are in the Chicagoland area. I think the Chicago Board of Elections has their own thing. So with the very decentralized election system, you hear often in the conversations about election security, that's actually a wonderful stopgap to ensure that you don't have one top-down approach to that could possibly impact elections across the board by infiltrating the top, and then it trickles down. Instead, you in Illinois, and this is really kind of how it plays out across the country as well, right? I mean, each individual state controls their own elections, siloed off, so that you can't have wide swaths of election interference, right? It's that idea of decentralized elections as part of election security. So they were talking about election security yesterday, and Maurice West, a Democrat from Rockford, the chair of the House Ethics and Elections Committee, he talked about the purpose of yesterday's hearing to really just highlight the need for more conversation around this entire issue of election security. Dan, go.
That election security is a nonpartisan effort. And that one that is never complete. We all, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, have a responsibility to stay vigilant against evolving threats to our electoral process. Our democracy is built on the foundation that a vote cast in any election will be tallied quickly, accurately, and securely. Attacks on this process are attacks on us all. They are attacks on our democracy itself. As our electoral procedures continue to evolve, new threats evolve as well. New technologies, new processes, and new actors create new challenges to our system.
Yeah, and there were some questions about artificial intelligence and how AI-created campaign commercials could possibly influence things, or how social media plays into all of this. But recall back in 2016, the Illinois State Board of Elections, which is a state board that helps guide elections. They don't control the elections, all right? They help guide elections. They do have a voter database because they help facilitate voter registration, even though the votes are counted locally in each local county jurisdiction. State Board of Elections just ultimately tallies all those at the top, but it can be audited all the way down to the ground with these individually siloed election offices across the state. But the State Board of Elections back in 2016, if you recall, Russian hackers tried to get into the system. They did get into the system. Now, again, State Board of Elections doesn't control elections, so all that happened was some voter data was viewed. That's about it. There wasn't any votes changed or any data change. It was just voter data was exposed, right? So that was a big story in 2016, still lingering today. And as far as the reaction to it and having cyber navigators set up to help train people across the state to ensure that they have all of these systems in place to keep their systems secure. So that was obviously discussed, but then it came time for some questions. And from Urbana, State Representative Carol Ammons, she shared some of her thoughts and what she wants to see happen. She doesn't want the decentralized election process that we currently have, that some say keeps our election system secure. She wants to see a top-down approach. So here's State Representative Carol Ammons.
I want to just think about this in terms of what we see happen in elections across the country, and as people are starting to enter into the next phase of elections. We have a bottom-up system that the information starts at the local and percolates up to the state board. And maybe about a year or so ago, we were trying to do a comparison between counties, and we had a hard time doing that comparison of voter information, voter turnout, some of these other pieces that we were trying to put together for one of our committees, actually, committee hearing, and realized that everyone across the state are not exactly doing everything exactly the same way and identifying these things in the same way. So it leads me to the question of looking at other states who have from the top down system, meaning the Secretary of State or the State Board of Election runs the elections with local governments, but they are the central holder of the information, and it's the starting point in many states like California and Oregon and Utah, who have a from the top down system. And I'm interested in how the top down system would provide greater security for voters in the state, as opposed to the antiquated individual locals doing whatever the individual locals are doing. And if the state board is doing anything to redress that, and looking at any research that shows how election systems are changing and how we need to change them with the times.
So do we need to change them with the times, or is having decentralized elections what's keeping the election system secure and ensuring that the public doesn't lose faith in elections, right? Because that's a major concern. That's why you've got people pushing back hard against the former president, Donald Trump, for whatever claims he's making. So obviously it's a serious question as far as election integrity, but election security plays right into that. Sounds like State Representative Carol Ammons wants to modernize the election system by having a top-down approach to where, somebody out of Chicago controls how Cairo votes, or the systems they vote on, or the tallying of those votes, or is it best to have a decentralized approach? Here's an official from the Illinois State Board of Elections responding to Ammons' assertion that there be a top-down approach to elections.
My name is Brian Pryor. I'm with the Illinois State Board of Elections. So as prescribed by, you had made a statement about how election authorities somewhat have mild differences about how they apply election law across the state. So a couple of years ago, the General Assembly requires the State Board of Elections to put forth universal guidance on certain subject matters, such as vote by mail, and many other subject matters. So that is guidance that comes directly from the State Board of Elections to all the election authorities across the state to provide the parameters by which are outlined in law, but the law is written in such a way that it allows for some deviation of process, but overall the process is administered very much the same. As it relates to the direct question at hand, I believe, related to a top-down versus bottom-up, that it's certainly a measure for the General Assembly to take up. In my research, historically, decentralized systems make it somewhat more difficult to engage in a cyber attack, simply because with the establishment of the Cyber Navigator program, you have universal resources across the state. In addition to that, you would have to approach multiple systems, 108 to be exact, in order to effectively change an election. So that's just my historical understanding of a decentralized system versus a centralized, or what some of the other states implement. So thank you.
I would love for us to, if you would send the committee any actual research you have on that, because even with a decentralized system, people are not doing these universally. The State Board of Election does not have enough people to make sure the 108 counties are doing everything exactly the same. So I know that's not exactly what's happening across the state.
So that's just part of the conversation they had. They also discussed the need for more election judges, the need to hire people, the need to have more resources for local elections, and so on. So there you go. That's your program here, Bishop on Air, on this Thursday morning. Tomorrow's Friday. So looking forward to wrapping up the week, the first week, even though a shortened week here from my home studio. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Again, follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air.